Hello everyone! This is Remleiz from 40k Theories, and welcome to this new episode of Adeptus Podcastus. Joining me as always is Tactica Imperialis.
Hello everyone!
And joining us as our returning guest this week, one half of Snipe and Wib, Wib.
Hello there.
General Kenobi. We have to do that every time. I'm sorry.
Every time.
It's the rules of the internet. Every time someone says hello there, you have to respond with General Kenobi. It's just the way things are.
Yes.
It is.
I mean, to be fair, it's... Sorry.
I was just saying, it's written into the bylaws. You know, you can't do anything about it. It's entrenched now. You know, no one's got the political will to change it. Sad, really.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's almost ironic that this is the first time you and I have spoken in so long, Wib, given how often you cover for people, you and Snipe, that when Rem was off for a month, you didn't cover him. Narina covered him, and then we got another guest, and Narina covered Rem again. So it's just ironic that the official cover teacher title doesn't really seem to have applied in that instance.
I think I'm going to have to speak to my union.
You have a union?
I mean, not for the YouTube thing. God no.
But yes, if you have a normal job,
Britain.
if you have a normal job, join a union.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If you're in a real job, join a union. If you're a YouTuber, it sucks to be you, I guess.
Yeah, I can speak as a teacher. You should really be in a union. But anyway, we're not here to talk about labour forces and politics unless we're talking imperial politics. So let's not.
Yes, but speaking of things that suck, let's talk about things in the news this week. If you play Beast of Chaos for Age of Sigmar, fuck you, I guess. Because your entire range is gone.
You get to suck shit.
Right, context. So, this is not just a fuck Beast of Chaos thing. They've done quite a lot here, and something that 40k has been terrified to do for so long. They actually decided to trim the range for AOS 4. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that this is defensible or great in any way, shape or form, but let's just go through what they've done and we can go from there. So, firstly, about a quarter to a fifth of the Stormcast range is gone. So all that stuff from AOS 2, so the Evocators, Sequitors, the Ballista, Castigators, all the Sacrosanct Magic Chamber stuff, that's gone. Like that's been...
I guess you could say that in the case of sequiturs, they're now non-sequiturs.
Fuck off.
Yeah. So,
come on, I had to get that in.
Yeah, all right. So they're gone, but a lot of the AOS 1 stuff is gone too. So the old Liberators, Paladins, Judicators, Prosecutors, the Knight Azeroth, the Lord Celestant, the Lord Castellant, the Knight Heraldor, a lot of... If you were playing Stormcast, the start of AOS, you pretty much don't have an army now. Now, we do know some of this is getting replaced. They have shown off new Liberators that have been upgraded to the Thunderstrike armor. Therefore, it stands to reason we may see equivalent replacements for some of these kits. However, the thing with the Stormcast range is they basically did a hard reset last edition when they introduced the Thunderstrike armor, where I've forgotten their name. The Spearmen replaced the Liberators, the Vigilor Archers replaced the Judicators, the Paladins were kind of swapped for Praetors, and we do also know that AOS 4 Stormcast are going to have some super heavy armor. So they're essentially saying we don't want to double up the role of the different units in the Stormcast range by having old armor versions and new armor versions. Basically, they've done what the Space Marines have been meaning to do for about 2 editions since the Primaris and just, bit the bullet.
It does really feel like they learned from the mess that they have made every Space Marine Codex since 8th dropped. And it's just been so bloated. So many things are just redundant. Like, it's a really annoying... Their codexes are always really annoying to look through because of that. Because there's just so much in them. On that level, what they're doing makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
the Stormcast stuff I can completely defend. And we do know some of it will get replaced. They're doing the same thing to Skaven. So, Ikit Claw, Rat Ogres, Storm Vermin, Clan Rats, Warlock Engineers, a lot of weapon teams are being retired. But we also know that the Rattling Gun is coming back in a new form, so are Jezzails in a new form, and so will many others. This is saying the old Skaven range is being retired. Some of it will be replaced by like for like or a new kit or whatever. They're giving Skaven players a warning that some things are going and some things are being updated with new models. So fair warning for Skaven players. And I think actually on a level of Stormcast and Skaven, I approve what they're doing. I don't like it necessarily because I have an old Stormcast army, but I get it and I accept it. The back end, not so much, because the entire Savage Orc range from Bone Splitters is gone. So you can only play Iron Jaws or Cruel Boys now. You can't play Bone Splitters if you're playing Oryx, which is a shame. But those models, I believe, are still viable in Orcs and Goblins in Old World. Slaves to Darkness are removing all of the old Warcry warbands, basically. So the Tarantulas Brood, the Unmade, the Signs of the Flame, the Untamed Beast. Basically, because they're doing Dark Oath, all these old warbands are just being rolled up inside Dark Oath, and therefore they're being retired. Though I'm sure you could probably use them as Dark Oath Marauder squads if you really squinted. And then finally, they've got rid of the entire Beast of Chaos range.
Yeah. Now, I do want to point out that they did say on Twitter that the entire Beast of Chaos range will be repackaged for the old world, but if you don't play the old world and only play iOS, then fuck you, I guess.
Yeah, that's the bit, because like literally I'm in a few buy and sell groups on Facebook, and literally the amount of selling my Beastmen, want to trade them for this because I don't play old world, there were more than a couple. So, and some of the models don't transfer back, like the Herdstone, the Endless Spells actually are AOS exclusives and don't transfer back. The Dragon Ogres, the Cockatrice, the Shaggoth, the Chariot, the Centaurs, Gores, Ungors, etc., they will all transfer back, and that's fine. But if you got into Beast of Chaos because you didn't like the fantasy systems, but you like the Beastman kit, then you are kind of SOL, which is annoying. I get it, but I think the rationale behind this one is, well, Chaos is a bit bloated at the minute. And I mean that in that you've got Khorne, Slaanesh, Tzeentch, Nurgle, Undivided, and now Skaven. You've got 6 major Chaos factions that you can play. Oh, and Demons. Actually, no, Demons are all up to the God factions. So you've got 6 major factions, and the Beastmen have never really found a good home within AOS. Like, the way they operate just hasn't really fitted in very well, and they've done like Zangor for Tzeentch, they've done Slangor for Slaanesh, so you can still get Beastmen that way. So I think it was just a case of these guys were brought over, but they never really had a home, so we're sending them back to where they belonged in the first place, if I were to guess. I don't like it, but I get it.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, because like, whenever a new edition comes out, like, I am always fearful of my armies, but that's because I collect stupid armies. So I expect when a new edition comes out to get screwed over, because it's either because I'm playing a Rebel Grot army, which the game does not want you to do, or
Correct.
my Lamenters, which are made of models from 1987 to 1989. So every single unit, I await them being on the chopping block, you know, every recent edition, basically, since Primaris have come out. And I know at some point I'm just going to have to run them as Primaris and do a lot of chopping and changing for how they're run. That's just the nature of that kind of thing. But I do think there is something, like, I like I say, I notionally approve, because like, this is what Space Marines have needed for a long time.
Yes.
And they should have just done it with 8th, to be honest. They probably should have done it, had the Primaris range be actually a bit more complete before they...
Yeah, or at the very least, do it for 9th, because they gave...
I suppose 9th would have been the right time.
We give you an edition's warning, fuck off.
That's fair. But I think, like, the big thing here that, like, I feel is really different is that, like, some of these models are like, what is it? Like, some of them came out only 6 years ago, which in Warhammer model terms is nothing.
So, for context, AOS is older than you think. AOS came out in 2015 now. So that's 9 years ago. The only models that Beastmen have received in that time is one Beast Lord, the Endless Spells, and the Herdstone. Like, everything else is over a decade old. And I remember some of these coming out. The Doom Bull, the Shaggoth, the Jabberslide, the Cockatrice. I remember them coming out. Oh, yeah. But they are a decade old at least.
Oh, well, like, especially when you're dealing with the ones that were inherited from old Warhammer. Like that, those are kind of like, if I was playing an army that was mainly based around those, I would be every new edition eyeing them cautiously for that reason.
Yes,
but I think it seems to be, at least the impression I've got online, has been the focus has been on the Stormcast thing, and I think it's because, like, on some level, and I say this not to be disparaging of them, just as a factual thing. Stormcast are Age of Sigmar's Space Marines, as in they are the
poster boy heavily armored human faction.
The poster boy heavily armored human faction. And so I think it's not unreasonable for people to assume some level of safety with a faction that they have bought models for are still going to be playable for the, near future. Because normally when GW retires a unit, it has to be pretty old.
Yeah, I mean, look at that Skaven range.
Yeah, I mean, like I think the only one I can think of offhand where they've retired a unit oddly early is like the Stalker and things like that. That's because no fucker ever used them. Whereas, like, this does feel like I can totally understand. Like, if I sat down and I was like, I'm going to build myself a Stormcast army, and I made it of stuff, and I'd look at the things and go, oh, this only came out like an edition, and go, oh, these are going to be safe. The whole army is going to be safe. Like, I would interpret it like that, and so I can see why people feel this like intense betrayal at that, because we're not used to seeing like it's fine if, say, you collect like say you collected a 13th Company army or like a Traitor Guard army or something on the rare times when those have been like specific things you could collect in an edition, and when it's like a weird optional list, you kind of assume that's probably not going to be their next edition. So I'm braced for that. When I go into this project, I'm aware.
Yes.
Whereas I think this is like it hits people really hard because it's unexpected. It's out of character for GW because, again, the Space Marine army has the exact same problem, a much worse version of it, and they haven't dared pull the trigger on that despite desperately needing to. And it's only like this edition that they've started to actually make some strides at doing so. And so I can totally see why people are like feeling, like, oh, I guess I'm not playing Age of Sigmar anymore. My army is not legal anymore. Because I know it's like they'll have Legends rules, but like
they don't count.
I think sometimes people need to remember that when people say that it's Legends, so you can still play it, that's fine. But on some level, a lot of people view those as not being proper units anymore. That you can play them, but they're not balanced. But
yeah,
and so a lot
absolutely.
of people just go, well, no, I won't use them. I won't use them. They might as well not be in the game for a lot of people. Some people use them, and that's cool. I use them, but
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, and I can speak on this as a Stormcast player, because I remember going to France, 2017, I bought a Stormcast army, and 2018, AOS 2, is when the Sacrosanct Chamber stuff came out. So some of these models are 6 years old, and no more. Now, here's the thing that soothes me a little. One is Legends, because it means I can still play the Warhammer Club, the kids ain't going to care. So,
yeah,
fine. True. 2, some of these are being upgraded. We know the Liberators are getting a new kit. I would assume we've seen Prosecutors in the trailer, so they're getting a new kit. Paladins will be shufted to the Ruination Chamber with a new Terminator kit style upgrade. And Judicators, I would assume, will get an upgrade kit or something or whatever. And 3, I think this is probably going to become a potential for rotation in the Stormcast range. I would not be surprised if, the Ruination Chamber's been open now, but in a bit's time, the Sacrosanct Chamber will have made a new discovery, or there'll be a new Storm of Magic type event, and they'll come back with Thunderstrike armor and be upgraded in turn. And that might mean that the current range of basic ones that are in AOS 3 and all that might then get retired for a while, and we go on a rotation, which means that for Stormcast players, your army is never invalid forever. Because by taking out Evocators, particularly, you've taken out you've left only one wizard in the whole army, and that's the Knight Arcanum. Like, literally, I think there's only one wizard left in the army after this cut. And I'm willing to be corrected, I might have forgotten a couple. But the Lord Arcanum is out, Aventus Firestrike is out, the Lord Exorcist is out, the Evocators are out. You've left one wizard in the whole Stormcast army, and taken out one of their main priests in the Lord Veritant. So I wouldn't be surprised if they are going to get like-for-like replacements, or they'll come back as a rotation later, and maybe I'm just coping. It might just be I am huffing copium, but maybe that's what they're going to do there.
It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. And like, as you said earlier, with the bloat and stuff, like, looking at the list of everything that's been removed, like, I'll be honest, an army, just the stuff they've removed, that would be enough units to make an army in a normal game of, like, for a lot of factions, that's like an entire army. Like,
yeah, I know, I own most of it.
Yeah, it's like I was looking at the current, like, Dark Eldar range, and I'm like, wow, they really haven't had any new units since, like, 2010.
Go take a look at some of the look at the Ideneth range. There's 2 units of infantry, 3 units of cavalry, 3 monsters, and 5 heroes.
Yeah, and on some level, I really like that. I'm actually a big proponent of having really slim army lists, because I think, like, all forms of Warhammer have got a real bloat problem going on, or more accurately, they have an uneven bloat problem. Some factions get so much, too much, and some factions get nothing.
Yeah, it's feast or famine.
Yeah, and that's just how it's been, and it's good that they are tackling it, but I don't know. I sometimes I do think that there was probably a more elegant way to do it, but I think the more elegant way was not to let the things get bloated in the first place. Yeah,
I agree, and I think you're right. I think a lot of the discourse has been around either Beast of Chaos or Stormcast. And I think as a Stormcast player, I don't like it, but I understand it, and that's I think this also gives Space Marine players a warning. Like, this is a shot across the bow to Space Marine players to go, just so you know, don't get too attached to your firstborns. I don't think they're going to be here that much longer. I think it also gives Space Marine players 2 more years warning that the old shit ain't gonna fly.
Yeah, I think I think one of the things that makes Space Marines a little bit more unique than Stormcast is there was a phrase I heard many years ago, which is that there are 2 types of 40k players. There are those that have a Space Marine army and those that only collect Space Marines. And
well, joke's on you. I own a Chaos Space Marine army.
Exactly. but the point is that, like, the difference between that, nixing a lot of Space Marines and doing any other faction is that you piss off literally every 40k player by removing firstborn units, with the exception of ones that started playing in basically post 8th.
The Primaris
or really post 9th, when it became viable to actually have completely Primaris armies because they'd filled in all the gaps.
Yeah.
And I think that I often see a lot of the stuff that GW does nowadays with when a new edition comes out. I always look at it and go, well, I hate this, but I hate it because I have existing armies. But I'm like, if I was building a new army, like if I was playing for the first time now, this would make a lot of sense to me. Like, this is for those people, and ultimately, being accessible. being accessible is how a game survives. So I can't blame them. But again, I just wish they wouldn't let the situations occur like this, so that they have to take these drastic options. Like, I think there's a little bit of the whole thing of I think for many years GW's been on this endless cycle of FOMO. Like, there's just something new all the time, constantly, and it's it makes them a lot of money. I understand why they're doing it, but it also means that they because they're constantly adding, it means there is always something new. They're constantly throwing stuff in there, and there comes a point at which it's going to be these things become unsustainable.
Correct.
Like, now we've got, I mean, how many games would we consider like mainline games that they're running now?
4.
Yeah, that's too many. Especially because they are too, like, if you are brand new and you're coming into playing Warhammer now, and it's like, okay, so you can play the one with Space Marines, or the one with only Space Marines, or you can play the fantasy one, or the fantasy one with square bases. What?
Yeah, like, you've got 2 main games, 2 historical games, 2 skirmish games, 1 competitive skirmish game, which is Underworld. Then you've got Necromunda, which is a 3rd skirmish game, and and then you've got Titanicus. Can't forget Legions Imperialis and Titanicus and all that. That's the epic scale game, which is also historical.
Blood Bowl as well.
Blood Bowl, and let's not forget Lord of the Rings is a thing.
Though we must.
I try to, but it keeps reminding me.
We must forget it, but we also cannot.
Yeah, they've got so much on the go, and at this point, it is obviously working for them. But I think the bloating of Rangers is a part of this thing, and I do wonder at some point it is going to become unsustainable. And I think this is an early sign of that, of maybe not getting so attached. Although I really hope it doesn't end up meaning that the game becomes like, Magic the Gathering, and then you end up with like, your entire setup for a season or however Magic works. I have taken great pains in my life to never understand how Magic the Gathering works. But how to do like a competitive like deck, you have to like completely change everything out all the time. Like, I hope we don't end up in that kind of situation, because I think there's a much bigger investment of not necessarily money, because I know how expensive Magic cards can get, but of your time and your commitment, because obviously you build these armies, they are yours, and like that. One of the nice things about Warhammer to me has always been that you can build stuff, and whilst units occasionally disappear, generally speaking, you can use an army from 20 years ago. You just might have to shift things around a little bit.
Yeah.
And
especially if you play Eldari.
Well, I mean, yes, they just haven't budged. Well, you see, my army is based largely around warp spiders. I've not had to change it since 1994.
Yeah, I think actually the most surprising exit is the Horns of Hashut. Which is
isn't that like 2 years old or something?
I don't even think they're that old.
They're relatively recent, because they came with a reveal of like, there's your new hobgoblins as well, isn't there? So
when did they come out?
It was them and the Jade people, wasn't
it? So 2022. So 20th of July 2022.
So like
there's
a year
an
and a
article
half
about them. So just under 2 years that they've actually survived.
Christ.
And
then we find that this is actually Games Workshop stealth cancelling Warcries. Oh, fuck it, get rid of it.
No, it isn't.
I'm a little bit like bummed about a lot of the Warcry stuff. Not because I played it, but because so many of those models were so unique and interesting, and I always meant to paint some of them just because they're cool. And I could just go and like get them now, but like I don't know. It just seemed. They were so characterful that removing such a big chunk of them feels like it is losing something from like the model range, and a lot of conversion opportunities that are now disappearing. Which I don't know. That's just a little bit sad, I think.
No, I agree. There are a couple of minis in other ranges that are going, just for the sake of completeness. So Valkyria the Bloody is finally dead.
She was still playable?
Yeah, she had rules. She was in Blades of Corn, I think.
Bloody hell.
So she's going off sale. The Saurus Eternity Warden, Chakax, as it was. The Sylvaneth Branch Wraith, Sylar Anfingrim. There's the boss on Giant Spider from Gloomspite Gitz, which I am surprised to see go, given that there isn't really a analog for it, because the only other rider champion you can get is the Arachnarok. The Mistweaver Sai, who was from Silver Tower and never had a faction. And then another Goblin Shaman on foot, but you've got the Fungoid Cave Shaman to fill in that slot, if you want to. I think, we've been talking about this now for like 20 minutes, but I suppose in summary, it sucks, but it, as you said, Wib, it is a necessary part of where Warhammer has got itself to. There is the constant release schedule of stuff being new stuff, and it's not evenly spread. So some things need to be trimmed. It sucks for Beastmen players. Like, if you're a Beast of Chaos player, also Rem put something in the Discord where literally apparently in January at LVO, people said the Beast of Chaos were always going to be an army in AOS.
From their official GW Q&A.
So that lasted all of 3 months before they backtracked. It sucks, and I do like that range, but at least they are not being retired. I know people maybe don't want to go back and play Old World, but they're there. And also you've got the option, I'm sure you could do some cool stuff to make your Gors into Zangors and your Doom Bulls into Slangors potentially. I think there's room to convert if you wanted to for some of the models. But I'm not surprised to see Beasts of Chaos go, given that they and Skaven were, I think, the last two armies of Old World that never got new models at all. So
Skaven aren't in Old World.
Well, no, that's what I mean, is that Skaven are getting redone for AOS, and Beasts of Chaos are going back to Old World.
Same with the Bone Splitters, it looks like, as well.
The Bone Splitters are just being rolled back in as Savage Orcs because they were there as a stand-in faction to bring you forward, because Iron Jaws were always this is the new faction for Orcs. Then they brought Cruel Boys in, and Bone Splitters were just
Do you know what the funny thing was in regards to the Bone Splitters? Apparently in the AOS tournaments, they were the top army.
Well, Oric Warclans might well have been. I don't know exactly how.
No, apparently it was actually Bone Splitters. They were the top army.
Oh, wow.
Apparently.
Oh, dear.
Hang on, so if I can find the actual screenshot from that list, whatever.
Yeah.
Keep talking.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I will miss the Warcry warbands purely because they've got some of the coolest minis in the range that you can't really replicate anywhere else. They're the ones.
I found it. From this year, like 2024, Bone Splitters had the highest win percentage.
Oh, wow.
60% win rate, followed by Blades of Corn at 57, then Nighthawk at 55.
Yeah.
Tied with Skaven.
Yeah, they're not. I mean, that's from a very small sample size of 15 games. Compared, so you've got to take into account variance.
They only played 15 games. They even said the 15 games they played, they won 60% of the time.
Yeah, but variance, like that could just be 10 good matchups. So you've got to account for variance. Like, but it's worth noting, Beasts of Chaos has 106 games played for them. In terms of representation, you can see quite clearly, just looking at these numbers. I mean, they are the least represented factions present. But not by that much. I mean, Tzeentch, Ideneth, Fireslayers, there's a fair few factions who don't have that many more than these. But yeah, I put that down to just variance because of such a small sample size.
It's just funny looking at it and seeing like the top percentage win rate is the smallest range. It's like, hey, well done, lads.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, this is a thing. 40k players, I would just say keep an eye out. Like if you've got an army that hasn't been updated in a long time, I'm not saying it'll get retired because we're not in a situation like AOS is where you had to move universe, but don't be surprised to see some more range trimming in future editions of 40k as well. I think this is a shot across the bow and a warning to 40k players that they know they have a bloat problem and they're fixing it.
I did put on, I posted on Blue Sky the other day, I was like, I'm just putting down my like money right now to say that when it comes around to, because I feel like this basically says, oh, by the way, Primaris aren't safe. So I reckon my money is that the first Primaris unit to disappear will be Reavers. Because again, no fucker uses them.
No one plays them.
But they do have a unique role to play. Like, compared to, say, intercessors. I know they're the basics, but they don't. There's so many units that do that job.
In my I think in a lot of ways they've been replaced in people's like hearts by things like infiltrators and incursors.
They came out together.
They didn't. Yeah, those they didn't come out with Reavers. Reavers came out long before.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
I thought that they were Vanguard armor, and thus they belonged to the same sort of.
No, Reavers came out long before that.
Yeah, Reavers came out with the original batch of Primaris.
Fair enough. My
bad.
The
only thing Reavers really have going for them is the cool skull helmet.
Yeah, that's
and
it.
The grappling hook.
I was reliably informed by someone that is the single worst piece that Games Workshop have ever made.
Snap.
Yes.
If you have it extended, then yes, that is a stupid piece.
I was thinking, like, I was looking at it and I'm like, God, I can just imagine you reaching over for like your dice or whatever and it getting snagged on the sleeve of your top and then just catapulting your entire squad across the table.
Yeah. I can believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, there's plenty more that can be said about AOS 4, but I get the feeling that our retention rate will go through the floor if I go through all of it. So, annoyingly, there's basically nothing to say for 40k. Like, nothing happened for 2 whole weeks. Nothing happened.
Apart from, we're getting a novelization of the Siege of Rax.
Okay, yes, there's a book. Fair enough.
Yes, and what surprised me about this is that it's just one book. Like, I would have thought, like, for something like Siege of Rax, which originally was, like, 3 entire campaign books, you'd think that'd be, like, at least duology. At least. But no, it's just one book.
Is it, like, focused? I haven't looked into it. Is it,
it's focused on one trooper.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it, like, it's taking a very narrow view, like, showing the thing through one person's eyes? I think then that's possible, because I think, like, the big conflicts are, like, massive, but you can totally, like, just take kind of a quick route through them by narrowing the focus a lot. And I guess it would be a bit of a gamble to establish like a multi-book series if you're not sure how it's going to go.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that like the multi-book thing, Forge World already did it. They did.
Yeah, but you can't get those anymore.
No, I know you can't get them, but like in terms of if you just did a multi-novel series telling the overarching tale of the Siege of Rax, the cynics like yourself, Ren, would go, this is literally just buying the Forge World books all over again, but with more on-the-ground storytelling versus overarching narrator storytelling. It's the same story. I think doing this as a zoom-in actually is probably a better way to gauge whether there is still an interest in Vrax, and if there is, they might do another one and make a little mini-series out of it. I'm sure Steve Lyons would be down if it sells well.
I'm sure he would. I have to say that the limited edition looks very terrible. I'm sorry, it looks ugly as sin. I don't like it.
Most of them do these days.
In fairness, the Vault of Terror series actually looked really, really nice when it came out in limited edition. Like, that nice faux leather cover, with the Inquisition symbols on them. Like, that looked fucking gorgeous.
Yeah, them and the Siege books are like the only ones that come to mind as like, oh yeah, I really, really want those limited editions.
I think my favourite limited edition one was the first Watchers of the Throne book, because that was just beautiful.
Yeah, the less said about the blooming, what was it called? Not Indomitus, was it? Yeah, it was Indomitus. I don't think it was Indomitus. What was the 9th edition ones that had the super peely covers on? Was it Indomitus?
Yeah, it was Indomitus, yeah.
Oh, it was, yeah. God,
yeah, where all the paintwork on it would just rub off if you just so much as looked at it funny.
Woof.
But yeah, like, just for comparison in regards to the Watchers of the Throne book, that's fucking beautiful.
Oh, yeah, that one. Yeah, no, that is...
Yeah, that is a good one. That is a good one.
Yeah, it's a shame that the sequel never got a limited edition like that, but hey.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what I feel like Ahriman had a good one when they did Ahriman Eternal.
The big mega box set mega edition
and
one.
And they did the Mega Tin. I feel like that was a good one.
Yeah. It's always nice when you get the nice big box set ones. I do enjoy those ones. even if they can be unreasonably expensive at times.
Oh yeah, they're all unreasonably expensive, especially when the scalpers get involved.
Well, there is that.
Yeah. Also, is it worth noting that the Siege of Rax story started in 2007? That's a long time. I know people harp on about how much they love the Siege of Rax.
A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
But yeah, 17 years.
Yep.
Just saying.
17 years. Oh, speaking of 17 years, we're still waiting on Horus's novel for the Primarch series.
Yes, we
Just
are.
saying. Just saying. That's the last one we're waiting for.
Yes.
I reckon we're going to get the bloody Eidolon book for the character series before that.
Yes, well, if you want more Horus in your life, how about Little Horus? Because they did a model for him.
Yes.
That was a good segue. I'm proud of that segue.
Yeah.
Well,
Polite golf clap.
yes. I have to say, I do appreciate the fact that they include the bare head option so you can appreciate, the facelift that Hibu Khan gave them.
Yes, absolutely. But I have to say, though, and I know the Sons of Horus Heresy miniatures have been a little bit bland, some of them. This one isn't. I actually really like this mini.
Yeah, I thought it looked really good.
It's quite characterful as well.
Yeah, I really like the helmet.
And the shield.
Yeah, with the little tusks.
Yeah, the little tusks. That like... there's something a bit, and also, I think the face, because of it, having its whole inadvertent facelift thing going on, I think that makes it a little bit more characterful than it could be, because this guy looks like Horus, so you mean he's a bold space marine? Yeah, we don't have many of those yet. So
yeah, it's such a thing within the Sons of Horus to look like Horus.
Yeah. So it's very easy for an unhelmeted space marine to just look like another dude. So
agreed.
Yeah, but I think this one actually looks pretty good.
And because his face was cut off and stitched back on, that also means, if you kind of mess up the paint job a bit, it can make it work to your advantage.
Agreed.
It can look like ugly scarring.
And I'm sure there'll be plenty of Emperor's Children players happy to see this kind of thing as well, if they're wanting to create something quite horrific and do some work on it. Plus, you don't see... I know Castigata shields are not unique to him, but I genuinely feel like having a shield, you don't see many shields. Proper shields, anyway.
No, it's nice. It's honestly, if it wasn't for the Eye of Horus on it, if you told me it was like a it was apart from an AOS kit, I'd go, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Complimentary,
but then I would agree, but considering that they recently released, the Command Squad, which also have shields,
well, not this kind of shield.
They're close enough.
Actually, they are kind of close. Actually, now I look at it again, they're pretty close.
I think it's because this one's more ornamental, so it makes it look a little more old, whereas those are a bit more utilitarian,
we certainly don't see many characters with a shield. I know this. You've got this command squad you just pointed out, but when you think of hero characters I know Lionel Johnson is right there, but... There are not that many, just basic generic hero characters or named character models that use shields. At least I don't feel like there are. I know Farsight's a thing and Lion's a thing, but generally you don't see that many, especially in the Heresy range. I know shields are a thing, but you don't see them that often on heroes relative. Also, I just want to point out, I'd forgotten this, that the power sword that is used is called Mourn It All.
I noticed
when he was in the Mournival. It's pathetic.
I hate that so much. I do really like the look of the sword, though. It looks really cool.
Oh, it's a nice sword. It's a good power sword, and it really reminds me of a Roman gladius, but sci-fi.
Yeah,
which fits his aesthetic.
Yeah, no.
Also, he has the Yarick rule where he gets back up again when you kill him,
and a Scarvial Loken kills him.
Well, unless Garviel Loken has instant death on his weapons, then no.
I was making a reference to the novels, Zach.
Yeah. All right.
Because Little Horus was killed by Garviel, yes?
Well, yes. Okay, from the siege, yes, he was.
Yes, he was. That was my point.
Yes, all right. Sorry I can't keep up with every single bit of siege lore. There were 8 books over 3 years. It's hard to keep up. Or it feels like 3 years.
I've brought you up to speed.
Yes, but, you do a book nearly every fortnight, and when there's 10 of them over the space of however many years it's been since... When did the first one come out?
It's been 83 years.
Fucking feels like it.
Release dates.
It was about 2006 for the very first Horus Heresy book, I think. Or Horse Rising. I think that was 2006.
Yeah, but in terms of the Siege of Terror novels, when was the first one of
Well, that
those?
was pre-COVID.
It was... What?
It was pre-COVID because that was back when Black Library was still selling books on their website.
Yeah, it was the Solar War, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. It was pre-COVID. Because after the pandemic happened, Black Library stopped selling books on their website. They only sold ebooks on there from now on.
It was a year before COVID. It was March 2019. It took them 5 years to do the Siege of Terror. The Siege of Terror only lasted a month. Jesus Christ, I didn't realise it was that long.
And we're still waiting on Horus's book. I'm going to keep going on about it.
Yes.
Oh, and also, for anyone who tries to be a smart ass and say, well, there's an entire series called The Horus Heresy, it's about him. It's not really. He's only in, 12 books out of 60. So, no, it doesn't count.
Honestly, Horus just did really well with his name recognition,
Alliteration, though, Horus Heresy.
Yeah, it just sounds good, whereas you call it technically, Lorgar and Erebus, that's kind of where it cut, and other people had more kind of significant role. But Horus Heresy just sounds good. It gives you that little alliteration,
Yeah, compared to Lorgar and Erebus's Bizarre Adventure, don't quite work.
Bit of a different
vibe.
Maybe
In Japan, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, anyway, you were talking about that Command Squad kit. I've just been looking over the sprue while we've been talking, and it's actually quite a good kit. And I like the fact that they've used everyone with a bionic arm to allow them to use it for the different Mark III and Mark VI tactical squads without the need for, oh, wait, hang on, we need to give them different armoured arms. No, we don't. Everyone's got a bionic.
It solves the issue.
Well, that's just Iron Hand players.
Actually, are they bionic or are they just Iron Warrior paint? It's an Iron Warrior's paint job on the actual kit, so I could be talking apps. No, I am. I'm talking Absolute Tribe.
One of them's bionic, the one holding a sword.
Yeah, sorry, I'm talking rubbish. It's just I don't know how they've managed to make them suit Mark III and Mark VI in one go, but fair play, because they're very different styles. But fair play.
I also appreciate the fact how he got 2 veterans of the Terran Unification Wars in this screenshot, and also one of Fafnir Rand's lads.
Which one's
the one with crossed axes on his chest.
Oh yeah, I missed
He's one of Fafnir Rand's lads.
Yeah, Unification. Yeah, sorry, I was not paying close enough attention to my heraldry there.
The eagle head with the lightning bolts is the Unification War heraldry.
Yeah, I know the heraldry. I wasn't looking for it. I didn't know where I was looking. So yeah, that's my bad for missing it.
Ah, bless you.
How dare you not be looking at the right JPEG?
Right, if you want to look at some...
I'll have you know it's a PNG.
Yeah. Well, if you want to look at some really pretty ones, how about we talk about Golden Demon?
Yes.
I'll go on then.
Because Adepticon, as always, did a Golden Demon showcase, and there were some incredible projects completed. I want to start with the Slayer Sword, because
Before we carry on, I just want to point out people in the comments... I'm not going to put every single item from the Golden Demon on screen. There's going to be so bloody many of them. I'm just going to put a link to the Golden Demon article in the video description. You can view it there.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair, because there's 100 just scrolling up this article. But I think the one that deserves to go on the screen, if any, is the Slayer Sword winner.
Oh, that thing is ridiculous.
Oh, the Vampire in the Swamp.
Yeah, but not just that. Casting his reflection into a lake, which shows him as, you can't see his reflection because he's a vampire.
I will post that on the screen, yes.
That is an incredible piece of work and deserves all the recognition it gets.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no.
Especially they mimic all the paint, all the highlighting on the grass as well, just slightly muted to make it look watery. It's well done.
Yeah, just the little touches throughout that thing. It's one I like, because the first time I saw it, I just kind of was scrolling through, and I just thought, oh, it's on it's just it's the camera angle showing the reflective surface, and then like my brain caught up and went, hang on.
No, that's been painted.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that one, it's got a lot of attention. I've even seen like people who I follow who like for non-Warhammer things who are a little bit into it, like comment on how good it is. Because it's one of those ones that seems to have broken containment a little bit. It's kind of that impressive and like, ridiculous. Truly, truly ridiculous.
Yeah. So yeah, full credit to Alexandre dos Santos, who won the Slayer Sword and deservedly so.
Yeah.
Like that. I know there's some amazing minis in here, but none of them even touch the sides compared to that.
Yeah, agreed. That was a deserved winner.
Agreed.
Because it's not just, obviously it's incredibly well painted, but it's just such an interesting idea and so well executed.
Yes, absolutely. Are there any others in particular to draw attention to? I mean, I'm very impressed with the Horus Heresy's gold winner with the non-metallic metal. I'm assuming that's Perturabo.
Oh yeah, with the helmet, yeah.
Like, I'm assuming that's Pert, but
that is Perturabo, yeah.
Yeah, because his armor can do literally whatever it wants, so...
Yeah, that is a really nice one. I also like the helmet, how it's very evocative of the Iron Warrior symbol as well.
Agreed. Actually, yeah, hadn't thought of that. Agreed.
It also just... to me, it just really feels like it's evoking that kind of 90s style of, like, chaos designs and stuff.
Something very Dave Gallagher about it.
Yeah.
That's a deep cut.
Yeah. I just noticed the little guy on his base as well. I like that a lot.
Oh, the servo spider.
Yeah, no, I like him. He's good.
He's adorable.
I think the other one I want to draw attention to is AOS's single miniature, because, like, it looks like it's been painted on canvas. Like, just...
The troll?
No, the Slaneshi hero.
Oh, Rose was the wrong one, sorry.
Like, just, like, tell me that doesn't look like it's been painted on a canvas, like, looking at the art style of it.
Yeah, it's like...
no, I get what you mean, yeah.
I've seen some
very textured.
Yeah, I've seen some people talking about it, like how it's, like, the kind of stippling technique it's using is, like, really interesting to see, because you don't tend to see... you don't often see, like, entire minis painted like that. Yeah, it's... outrageous.
Yeah,
just outrageous. The more you when you're getting into this kind of level, the more you look at it, the more you go, oh, piss off, you're too good.
Yeah, it's funny. I was watching some YouTube last night and a video because I was a trombone player when I was younger, and there was a video of a trombone like soloist playing, and I was scrolling down the comments, and just some people just reach the point where us mere mortals just laugh or go, oh, fuck off, and this is one of those times where you just look at it and go, oh, fuck off. How have you done that?
I see one that Wib might appreciate. The two grots jumping out of a plane.
That's in dual bronze. That's diorama in dual bronze.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But as a Rebel prop player, I think they'd appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I also really like the Force perspective there of using like the Aeronautica jet with like regular size gobos. Like that's really fun. Again, it's doing something really interesting with the tools at hand, and that's just really
absolutely cool. Yeah. 40K's winner was an Exodite. I think it's worth noting that someone actually did an Exodite.
Yeah, I've seen some controversy in regards to this one.
Yeah.
Oh God, why?
Basically, because the background on this was AI generated. The guy admitted as much on his Instagram.
Well, that doesn't matter, does it?
If it's part of the diorama, it technically does, I think.
Well, it's not a diorama, is it? It's entered into single miniature. And I'm not defending the use of AI art here. I'm not. I'm just stating for the sake of the record.
I get what you mean, but considering that it's also like it's considered part of a base, with a scenic base, with a scenic background, with like the vines added to it and stuff like that to make it a forced perspective and all that, I can see why some people are
annoyed.
Not too happy, say.
I see the argument. I don't...
Especially considering there's rules in place for things like, when you 3D print, stuff and stuff like that, or things like that.
I just have ultimately the Golden Demon is an art competition, and AI generated stuff should never be in an art competition. I have a very hardline stance on this as an artist. So
no, fair enough.
Totally fair.
I suppose, I'm looking at it purely from the miniatures perspective and the way the mini and its actual base has been painted.
The miniature itself is great, and the base, with little painted fish, that's great as well.
That's the thing. I think the painter has done themselves a massive disservice by including that, because let's be honest, it is a controversial thing, regardless of your personal opinion, anyone's individual opinion on it. It is a controversial thing to include, and
agreed.
It's only going to take away from your actual skills on display. It makes people stop looking at your actual abilities and what you've achieved and concentrate on this secondary element, but because of what it represents. You have made a statement by including that in your work.
I think either way...
Sorry, go on.
Sorry. I think either way, Games Workshop probably need to, in future, clarify the stance on whether using stuff like that is okay, just for, for everyone's sake.
Yeah.
The same way they do it with their 3D printing thing. Because, if 3D printing's not okay, but using AI is, you could argue that makes a double standard.
Well, yeah, 3D printing requires talent, to do it properly.
And if you want to do something like this, what people could do in future is they could use AI to create a prompt and then paint it themselves. I use it as an inspiration. If you're struggling for ideas of how to make an alien swamp world look, you could input that prompt, get a picture, and then paint, almost try and copy it yourself, because you just didn't know where to start. I'm not saying that that's perfect either, but at least it gets it out of... It means that you've at least done the original work. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm clutching at straws, perhaps.
I know you can. I also just want to clarify when I said that 3D printing requires talent. I'm talking about sculpting the thing in 3D modeling program. Pressing a go button on the thing is. I'm not saying that's
no. We know what you meant.
Although I will admit, every single person I have ever talked to about 3D printers tells me about everything that goes wrong with them. So on some level, they do deserve some credit for making those things actually function for any length of time.
Hi, Kirioth.
Yeah, fair. Are there any other minis to draw attention to? I mean, I'm looking at the minute at the Vashtor that won the vehicle competition and looking at it being that is incredibly impressive weathering techniques, sir. How many powders did that cost you? But other than that, is anything drawing your eye?
Yeah, there was one I meant to mention. There is the Middle-earth gold one. The thing it's on is just quite fun with the moose.
Oh yeah, that's quite cool.
But no, what was it? Where was it? Sorry. Oh yeah, it was the diorama in dual silver, where it was like a Space Hulk.
I mean, it's a classic, but it's a good
with very very heavy stylized OSL everywhere.
The weapon firing effects are really impressive.
I really like the green glow,
good,
because it contrasting really nicely with the reds and oranges and stuff.
Though, given the person who entered it has the surname Cantor, they should have painted them as Crimson Fist, but that's just my personal take. Sorry, it had to be said. Yeah,
if you want to see the rest of the entries, click the link in the video description. I'm not putting every single entry on the screen.
You're going to put every single one, or the comments will be mad at you.
I'll put the ones we mentioned on the screen, like ones we actually explicitly talked about, but I'm not putting every single bloody thing in.
Fair.
Link in it. Just for practicality's sake, because there's so bloody many, and otherwise we'll be talking about them for the next, hour or so. And we're about an hour into the show already, so
oh Christ.
It's time to mosey on down to the watering hole. I don't know why I'm talking like this now.
Yeah.
I could always be talking Irish now, but I come here to me, and all that thing. But hey.
Oh Jesus Christ.
All complaints can go to 40k Theories. We have no part in this.
So you can find me on Twitter at Oculus Imperia.
Dear God. But yeah, so there's a couple of bits I feel like I want to just touch on with AOS 4. I'm not going to get into the intricacies, but I want to talk about it on a strategic level, because some of this might, you can see the influence as a 10th, but also thinking about how this might go on to influence 40k down the line. So I'm not going to
I did want to kind of hear someone talk about this, because not having much experience with AOS, I was curious as to like, because from a casual glance, I'm like, well, this looks kind of the same from what I knew, but I wanted to know from a better perspective. Like,
so let's start with modular rules. So the first thing they've done is they've actually properly codified teaching the game a bit at a time. Instead of it being to players like, oh, right, so your first game will do the basics, and then we'll introduce this, then we'll introduce that. They've actually introduced what are called modular rules. So you've got your core rules, which everyone knows. There are core rules that you can play with. But then they've segmented the advanced rules into 6 proper sections. Commands, so like orders, the hero phase, that kind of stuff. Terrain, magic. So magic is now an advanced rule. You don't have to teach magic out the gate, which will really help the new player experience. Army composition, we'll come back to that. Command models, so proper unit command and stuff that used to be on the war scroll, but now isn't. They'll come onto war scrolls. And then the battle tactics, which is sort of like your secondary objectives kind of thing. So that means now, if you want to play the game, you can actually take out or plug in whatever you need. So if you're teaching a new player, you can teach them the core rules and then say add the terrain rules so that people know what the sort of battles they're playing on. Or you could add in the commands thing. So you want to teach heroes to play a hero hammer type game, we'll add that in. Okay, you want to now teach them how to build their own army because they've had a few games to learn the basics. Okay, let's plug that in. And then you want to teach them to play competitively, let's plug in battle tactics and actually start teaching them how to play the game in a more deeper style. So in all truth, they haven't changed what the rules are. Well, they have, but we don't know how they've changed all these rules. But what's important is they've changed the way in which it can be taught and which bits you need to play the game. So you've got your core rules for Spearhead, but if you're playing Path to Glory, which is their equivalent of Crusade, you don't use the battle tactics rules. They're just taken out, meaning that you can follow your own Crusade rules. If you want to play match play, yeah, okay, you need all of it. But you can mix and match, which will really help the teaching experience as someone who's going to have to teach AOS 4, I suspect, to a bunch of new players.
That I actually really like that, like, because it's always been the big problem with any war game, really, is like that they're very rules dense as a general rule, and
absolutely,
and quite often, because of the way the rules interact with each other, it's not always easy to go, okay, we just won't do this or we won't do that, or at the very least, it's very difficult to know what to remove.
I've had that problem massively of like, okay, should we introduce command traits? Should we introduce relics? Should we introduce psychic power? Should we introduce stratagem? Should we introduce tactical objectives, secondary objectives, yada, yada, yada. And even now, a year into 40k 10's lifespan, we mostly don't play, we only really have got as far as objectives and psychic powers. And that's it.
Yeah, no, I think this is, I look forward to them putting that into, I guess, 11th edition now, and then giving me an excuse to never learn the terrain rules as opposed to normal, which is me looking at them and going, wow, these are terrible, I never want to use them. Yeah,
absolutely, that's clever. The other thing that's really changed is the army composition rules. So in 40k and AOS, you pick a hero, you pick your units, you go. For AOS players, that old 40k where you have to have 3 battle line and a leader, and then some other limits on how many behemoths you can take, etc.
In my day, you had 2 troops choices in your HQ.
Yeah. 40k has you must take a hero.
25% of all your points.
Yes. All right, Grandad.
Thank you very much. But 40k obviously has gone with the you can pick a hero, everything else is fair game, but you can only do like the rule of 3 and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
AOS has gone for a sort of hero-based regiment system. So you make a regiment which is 1 hero and 3 or 4 non-hero units. Depending if it's your general. If it's your general, it's 4 units. So a core army will be 1 hero and up to 4 units. And these regiments don't have unique rules necessarily, like detachment flavor. That will come later. I'm sure you'll be inside the battle tomes and things like that. But the baseline regiments is very simple. And the way this affects deployment is you drop your regiment one at a time, which means that the less regiments you require to build your army, the quicker you can get deployed, and therefore you will get command points for it. Now, if you need extra units, you can take what are called auxiliaries. And these are a way to take outside of a regiment. You can take as many as you want, but they're taken one drop at a time, meaning you're more likely to be deploying last, and therefore you lose out on the additional command point. And it's not just one command point, it's one command point per round. So it actually stacks up as basically you're giving away 3 to 5 command points if you don't stick to the regiment system and your opponent does. Now, you're able to reinforce units like you could before, where you could take double size, and certain heroes are able to take other units, and other heroes are locked. So if you take a Venari Bannerblade, which is the AOS flag guy for Lumineth, they can only take Venari in their regiment. That's the spearmen, the archers, the cavalry, the blade lords. Whereas if you take the Alarith Stone Mage, you can take spearmen, but then only take the hammer cows and the Spirit of the Mountain. You're locked into what you can take based on who your hero is. And most of the time, you can only take one hero per regiment. Only some heroes can take a sub-commander, as it were, like a lieutenant hero. Like, for example, you can take the Mighty Lord of Khorne and make a little hero hammer detachment, but most can't. So you'll end up with, by design, sort of semi-thematic detachments in each regiment, and that will allow you to drop your army in a more thematic style. So that's the idea anyway. Which means you could, for example, take a Warlock Engineer, 4 Doom Wheels and call that your army. You are allowed. Or you could take an Alarith Stone Mage and 4 Spirits of the Mountain and call that your army. So they've actually removed the restrictions of what you can take, or more accurately, they've changed how you're restricted. So you're restricted by theme, not by category.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's been interesting over the last handful of years in like GW's different games of seeing them come up with these different ways to kind of let you do whatever you want, and just kind of rewarding and or punishing you in different ways for how you choose to build them in these kind of thematic ways. Yeah, this sounds interesting.
Yeah, you're rewarded for taking thematic armies and not just doing Hero Hammer. I think it's another way of de-incentivizing Hero Hammer. The other thing they've done is they've also sort of revamped double turn. So if you do double turn, you can't pick a battle tactic, a secondary objective. So you actually cannot claim victory points if you take a double turn. Which is a nice way to nerf double turn a little bit. And the other thing is they've got rid of bravery completely and swapped it for objective control. So the objective control stat from 40k has been moved over, but the bravery stat is gone. Like, it's gone. Remains to see if Battle Shock will remain and how it will function, if at all. But they've completely scrapped the bravery stat and reworked Universal Special Rules onto War Scrolls, and they've also colour-coded War Scrolls. Let me give you an example. So Nagash has got a very complicated War Scroll. He's got 2 passives, 2 spells, and another ability. But his War Scroll, I'll show you it, looks like this, where it's colour-coded. So you've got a black one is a battle damage passive. You've got color-coded by when you use them. So gold means in your hero phase, you activate this ability. Purple means at the end of turn, you activate this ability. And the icon shows what type of ability it is. Offensive abilities, special hero unique abilities, rally or summoning-based abilities, death-based defensive ones, objective-based ones, like the Liberators have got a passive that gives them more control in their home territory. So it's trying to make it really clear when you use your abilities, what your abilities do, and whether they are passive, offensive, defensive, and they're even keyworded. So Monstrous Rampage, which was a passive ability that all monsters had, has now been keyworded onto the War Scroll. All the spells have been keyworded onto the War Scroll. You can also see that Ward and War Master, Wizard, and all these things that weren't keywords before, like, there used to be that if you were a wizard, you had on your War Scrolls, like, this model can cast up to 2 spells in your hero phase and unbind up to 1 spell in the opponent's hero phase. That was the standard wizard on a War Scroll. Now, Nagash is just wizard 9, which means he can just cast 9 spells a turn, because he's bullshit.
Yeah. No, that seems really sensible, actually, because I think especially when, I think with more simple units, like it's one thing, but yeah, when like you're looking at if you were looking at this without all of that kind of quality of life stuff going on, like that's a lot of stuff to take in about when each thing works. But yeah, just the simple color coding and then unifying some things into keywords. Yeah, no, that just seems like a really sensible idea. Huh.
Yeah, because, 40k tried to do this in 10th, where they simplified the data sheets. The data sheets are still quite complicated to read.
Oh, they're a nightmare.
I'm trying to teach kids, okay, you need to look for your melee weapons here and your ranged weapons here, and also what abilities have you got? When can you use them? It's a fucking nightmare to teach using the War Scrolls. They're actually quite hard to read. These are much better.
Yeah, no, this seems like a really... It often feels like Age of Sigmar is always like in a lot of ways is always like a step ahead of 40k, because it's like, I guess because it doesn't have quite as much inertia behind it. For like, it's so like there's so many things like Age of Sigmar does a thing and they're like, oh yeah, we should probably do that in 40k because it is just kind of a really good way of doing that.
Yeah, the one thing that they've nicked off 40k is the objective control mechanic, where it isn't just one model per thing, and I think that's a good thing to take. Like, Nagash should not be outscored on an objective by 2 gobos. It just, sorry.
You are not. You're doubting the power of your average goblin. I am not biased.
Okay, 2 clan rats then. 2 clan rats then.
Yeah, that's fine.
That shouldn't happen, so he's control 10. But even a basic Stormcast Liberator is control 1, so it'll be interesting to see how they make that mechanic fit together. I'm also curious to see what the hell they're doing with Bravery. Like, is Battleshock just not a thing anymore? Is everyone just immune to psychology now? If so, no, Skaven are cowards and run away all the time. That needs fixing. But it'll be curious. And yeah, I'm just interested as to what they're doing. And, I think it's some good ideas for how to make the game accessible. Because I know when I have to teach AOS 4, if I get these cards and I give them to our pupils and go, right, so it's the hero phase. Do you have any gold boxes? Yes. Okay. I need to activate. So what does it say we can do? This. Are we in range to do this? Yes. So what do we do? It is so crystal clear as to what you do, when you do it, and it means that whole thing of, oh, I forgot I had that ability. Oh, I forgot I could do that. I can't tell you how many times I forgot that I could do X thing with this unit, or that this trait was active. I forget all the time.
Well, I think that's one of the problems that games in general have of when you've got these like passive abilities and things on, and you've not got them dead in front of you. Battle tactics for Space Marines. How long have they been in the game now? 3 editions. I forgot. I think I've used all the games I've played.
Thing since 5th.
Well, the version of them where it like changed each thing.
That was the Assault Devastator Doctrines changing turn to turn. I think that was 7th.
Was it 7th? I didn't play 7th. So, basically I forgot that. I think 90% of the games I ever played, because it's in another part of the book and it's like not attached to the thing, and I need to remember it, and so I don't remember when I'm supposed to be doing it, so I forget. And they changed it so many times as well.
Yeah, and this is where they get you on buying the packs of cards, because like, I know, like, as a Tau player, I've got 5 different units in my army, but I've also got to remember I'm playing a Monk Car, I've got these stratagems I can use. I will not remember all of them, because I'm going to be thinking about 18 different things at once. So they get you on the cards because they actually remind you what you need to do to play the game.
But yeah, just having these things nicely baked in, telling you when to do them. Yes, I approve this. Put it in 40k, please, so I might remember things rather than just not.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm completely with you.
Because I don't think it helps that most of the games of 40k I ever play are with a mate who I've not spoken to in several months, so, most of my games end up being half a conversation, so I forget a lot of things whilst playing.
Agreed. It happens a lot, and same for me when I'm trying to teach the game. I will forget my own rules of a thing because I'm too focused on making sure they actually play all the steps in the right order. Like, oh, did you remember to do the charge step? Oh, did you remember to roll to hit? Oh, did you do battle shock? And it's like, I'm thinking about all of those things, or what's your hit roll? What's your wound roll? I'm thinking about all of those things, and I'm not thinking about, oh, did I remember to activate subclause 42B on War Scroll 7? I know that's being facetious, but you know what I mean.
I don't think it's that much of like an exaggeration.
No, if you're playing with someone like... Actually, I was playing a game against a kid who had Abaddon, and they bought their own Abaddon. And literally, the entire game, they forgot to use the, Supreme Overlord of Chaos ability. With all, it's got 3 different passives for rerolls or wards or invulnerable saves or whatever, and they completely forgot to use it for the entire game. And I didn't know, I forgot it was there. So
yeah, it's so easy to do. So anything that makes it less easy is like good. Just an unalloyed good. Just like, yeah, no, great.
Yeah, it's I do watch and follow a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's like problem-solving card text. It's just simplify this paragraph into one sentence and make it very clear when you can do all these different effects is so important. I'm sure you were talking about Magic earlier. There'll be Magic players who were saying the same thing of just like, imagine if it just made it super crystal clear what my 5 ability card could do. Oh wait, everything's symbol coded. Easy.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rem, I feel like you've just been shut up for the past 10 minutes and that's not fair.
Nah, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Good. Okay. But yeah, anyway, that was what I wanted to touch on with AOS 4. Not like I went into the nitty-gritty of the mechanics, but just what they're doing overall, where you've got these different ways of building your army, modular rule sets, and new look war scrolls, because some of that will probably have a knock-on effect, especially if it works, on 40k down the line.
Yeah.
And I think there was some new Liberator minis, but they're boring, so I'm going to skip straight over that. And
I like the new helmets.
Yeah, and they've done a couple.
They remind me of Jim Carrey's The Mask.
Yeah, actually. Ooh, yeah.
They don't know, yeah.
Yeah, because it's got the metal stripe. Yeah, yeah.
Suppose they go into battle and they shout, "Somebody stop me."
Yeah, I kind of want to paint some in some very specific colours now.
Let me guess, it's going to be the banana-coloured pimp suit.
Yes.
But, those those display cases that we talked about at the when they did the merch festival. We talked about those like fancy display cases.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they've released them. So if you want to buy them, the single character ones are either £17 or £22, depending if you want the background or whatever. The singles 1 to 2 squad ones are between £26 and £47, depending on how big you want it. And then the Army display case is £60 to £82. If you want no background, they're just £15. If you just want a clear mini case for your display, it's £15.
Fair enough.
Like they from what I can see, they look like they're pretty well made things as well. So,
I mean, yeah, they're wicked brick. So they do like wall mounts and Lego stands and also, and they do a bunch of different themes. So this is not just something that they've cocked up for Warhammer. This is something that these guys do this regularly.
Yeah, like I'm tempted. I might be tempted to grab one because I've got So many years ago, back in times of yore, when Snipe and I got married, our cake topper was a Space Marine and an Orc.
Oh, okay,
I've seen
fair
it
enough.
online. Yeah,
I made it's done the rounds on the internet a few times. But like, it's currently stored in like a display thing for like a sort of. It is for a figurine, but for like a porcelain figurine thing. So it's like not really the right kind of size or anything, but it keeps it safe. And like, I would be tempted to get one of these for that. Like, if you've got like a single thing that has like a lot of sentimental value to you, like the single ones, I think that's like a kind of cool idea. And to have something a bit more bespoke for it, also quite nice.
Yeah, and if you've got a particular miniature, like I know I've sold my Lumineth, except Teclis. I've sold my Slanesh, except Sigvald. I only have one mini left for those armies. So if I know I'm never going to play those armies again, maybe they would be quite nice to go on display. But would I pay 20 quid for a display case? Or like more like 40, 50 quid if I wanted to display my Teclis? I don't know.
I think it depends. There's definitely certain. I think like for single things, you've got to really love that one mini for whatever reason, like to have some real.
Or it's got to be uber fragile. Looking at you, Saint Celestine.
Celestine won't even fit in that.
Yeah, but like,
too tall.
honestly, I'm looking at the size of some of the big ones, and you're thinking about everything that goes to it, and I'm like, you know what? You'll find it difficult to find anything that's like a flat pack thing that is that kind of size that you aren't getting into that kind of territory.
True.
Like they're expensive, but they're expensive as in they are objects that are expensive, as opposed to they are expensive for this kind of object, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get you.
But yeah, I think news-wise, we've just about got ourselves covered. There were a couple of minis to celebrate AOS 3, but you have to... I think they might have already... Well, I think they're available still. There's a Cruel Boy and a Knight Incantor, I guess. But...
Does anyone actually give a toss about the Cruel Boys?
Say again?
Does anyone give a toss about the Cruel Boys?
Well, considering Bone Splitters have just been taken out of the game, they're the only way to get half-decent infantry that aren't massive whack-off Iron Jaws.
I've seen some people make cool 40k orcs using them as a base.
Really?
Yeah, I've seen a few people do that. They look quite interesting.
I'd have thought the Iron Jaws would have been better for that because they're much bulkier.
No, they don't. In my opinion, like the aesthetic of them just doesn't really gel as well with a sci-fi setting. Whereas you can get a bit of a Mad Maxy vibe going on with the Cruel Boys.
Yeah, okay, I hear you.
I guess.
Which I think like 40k orc weapons fit better with. My opinion, anyway.
No, I get you. Fair enough. Right, so... I haven't actually had a chance to read through anything yet because I'm currently in the process of reading through an Ian Watson book for Patreon supporters because I hate myself.
Why?
I just told you because I hate myself.
I know why, but why?
How many times do I have to keep repeating the same thing over and over again?
Yes, I know, Remleiz, but even if you hate yourself, you can't hate yourself that much to put yourself through Ian Watson for money.
You'd be surprised.
One of my long-term goals is one day I am going to sit down and I am going to just read everything that he wrote for 40k, and I am going to make my video
on it.
which is my lukewarm defense of Ian Watson, but also I hate him.
Wib's tepid takes.
Yeah,
Ian Watson got 40k better than any other author.
I will always say this of Ian Watson. He is one of the few authors that fully understood exactly how shit the Imperium is, and writes his Imperial heroes as just being a bunch of space wankers. And on some level, that is a much more believable end result of the kind of people who would rise to power in a horrific space fascist regime. And
especially if you read his books, the actual original releases of the books from the early 90s. Yeah. The original releases. Don't go for the ebook version, because the ebook versions have cut so much out. Like I've talked about this on Twitter. Like they cut out the whole onion ring scene from Harlequin, for instance.
I haven't read that one, so I do not know what that is, and I am terrified to know now.
Well, basically, an Inquisitor's getting mentally interrogated, and the passage says like they peeled the onion rings of his mind, which I think Ian meant to say the onion layers of the mind, because onion rings does not work in this context. Either that, or he was just very hungry when he wrote the book.
I will say this: if nothing else, Ian Watson has a very interesting use of phrasing.
He likes to alliterate his special sound effects for bolt guns. he likes to actually write them down. You know, crack, bam, boom, wow, crack, bam, boom. Where it's like part of like a drum and bass song, like crack, bam, boom, wow. I don't know. Ian Watson drum and bass. There you go. Yep, you imagine him do a drum and bass table.
I would rather not think of that. I'll be perfectly honest.
He calls his turntables the orgasm machine. There you go. As a callback.
Yep.
That's a reference to one of his books.
Yes, we know, Remleiz, we know. Well, I have started reading something. I decided to try some more crime and went and... I'm going to embrace the joke.
That on the line.
I'm rolling with the joke because I kind of walked into it last time, so I just got to roll with the joke.
Yeah.
And I started reading Flesh and Steel, which is one of the earlier Warhammer crime novels by, I think it was Guy Haley.
Okay.
Is it Guy? Yeah, it's Guy Haley. I'm only on chapter 4, so I'm only about 10% of the way through it. So, 15% perhaps. But so take what I'm saying with a pinch of salt. But in terms of, you were talking about people who rise to power in a corrupt pseudo-religious fascist authority, kind of on that one, because obviously this is Varangantua. So I'll just set you up as to where I'm at. We've got a wisecracking detective. I mean, it's a very stereotypical, disgraced member of a noble house come to slum it with the civvies, working as a probator, who doesn't really have the favour. It's found that everyone knows his name, and is like, I can't be, if you weren't part of this family, I'd have struck you off, or I'd have shot you, or whatever, It's that kind of protagonist.
Mm.
So it's nothing groundbreaking in terms of protagonist. And the case in question, there's sort of two cases running in parallel. One in the background and then the primary plot. The primary plot is a man has rocked up, been found, chopped in half. Bisected very neatly at the waist, and half his body was on Mechanicus territory and half was on Imperial territory. And it's a cold, wet autumn morning as the detective rocks up to investigate, and the Skitarii are stood in a perfect formation line, be like, no, you will not access the back half of this body. This is our turf. No. Whereas the Imperials are like, well, we want to know what happened. Who was this guy? Why won't the Mechanicus talk to us? Type thing. And where I've gotten to, we've been given vid feed of a supposed rogue servitor carrying the body and then cutting it in half and discarding it in this sort of not disputed territory. Like, it's made very apparent the Mechanicus have done a very, very dirty deal on the Imperials and pretty much control everything in terms of food supply even. So it's not a good deal for the Imperials on Varangantua in this hive section. I think it's called the Steel End, or I've forgotten its name now. What is it? Not the Steel Mound. The Steel Mound. That's it. Because it's at the edge of a mountain range kind of thing. Well, I say mountain range. It probably is a mountain range, but it's the Imperium. Who the hell knows? So yeah, they've got this vid feed of the body being dumped, and the mechanic's like, "We've done our investigation. Rogue servitor, done. Case closed." But they've been allowed to take the body and do that investigation on the promise that the probator gets a look at it and full disclosure of everything they've done for their investigation. So the investigation is about to begin, but it's clear that something's gone on with either the servitors or the Mechanicus. I mean, the book's literally called Flesh and Steel, and the only reason this probator's working in this case is because he's got a bionic arm. So they think that it'll give him some leverage. So, yeah, and this is also this case of some missing girl who's been missing for a few months, and she's from a super rich, ultra-elite family, and the Castellan of the Bastion's like, you need to solve this case, because otherwise God knows what'll happen, because the rich guy will come down and kill us or something. Or by us, I mean me, not you, because you're from a posh family. But these cases never get solved anyway, because probitors, according to this, can go 5 months at a time without solving a single case, because it's Varangantua. So, yeah, it's all mostly been set up, but it's done enough to keep me interested. Like, it's not like the Andrasta novel I read recently, where it was like the first 3 chapters were really, really tedious, and then it got going. It's done enough to set up, okay, it's a bit of a stereotypical plot, there's been a murder, and there's something sus about it, and there's this powerful faction who are hiding something. And also, I'm an edgelord because I'm from a noble house, but I don't associate with them and they don't like me, so I'm slumming it, all this, and I work as a detective, and I have a really fancy coat, and I drive a car, and I have a solid shot pistol because I don't trust las weapons to put a hole in someone and make sure they stay dead. Yes, that's pretty much a direct quote. Yeah, it's very stereotypical for a crime novel. Like, not just a Warhammer crime novel, but a crime novel in general. But it's done enough to keep me interested so far.
Huh, good.
I've also bought Badloon Rising because I fancy torturing myself with goblins. As soon as I saw that book get revealed, I was like, I want to buy that book. And my friendly local hobby store has actually put a Black Library stand in now, so I can actually buy Black Library from them. So I bought Badloon Rising because ever since I've seen them, I'm like, I can't get the song out of my head. I can't.
Is it because you see a Badloon Rising?
Yeah, that one. Yes, that one. I can't. Every time I read the book's cover, I'm just like, the song just pops into my head. So I wanted to read it. And I read Gloomspite, which was the other main goblin novel, as well as Gotrek Gitslayer, which has got a lot of Gloomspite in. And generally, AOS Gloomspite are written very, very well. So, very interested to see how that goes.
Fair enough.
But sadly, that's all I have to report.
Fair enough. So, Wib, have you been reading anything?
The funny thing is that for like a few years, I basically didn't read any novels because my brain had turned to the consistency of mashed potato, and I couldn't concentrate on doing it. So I've been like forcing myself to read again. But in terms of what is relevant to this podcast, I think the only thing I've read recently was I read Blade Oath by Andy Clark.
I don't recognise that one.
It's like a novella that was...
The Silver Templars one, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's the Silver Templars one that was a part of the Conquest, parts work thing. But obviously they had an excess of them because I went into a charity shop and found a shelf full of that and the Conquest art book for like £1 each, still in cellophane. So obviously they had excess. And yeah, I got that, and and so I read that. I guess it's like a month and a half ago now or something. But yeah, that's an interesting one because it is effectively a love story between one man and a sword.
Yeah, I lost my sword. Now I got to go and get it back.
Yeah, now he's got to go get it, go get revenge on the demon, the demon prince that took his love from him. But there's a twist. Although it does have one thing that the thing I absolutely remember from it, aside from the Silver Templars rules about weapons are so weird and arbitrary. I'm like, oh man, I imagine that writing for these gets really annoying real quickly. But
for the uneducated, what are said rules?
Oh, basically, like, they are like bonded to their weapons in a way that, like, if a weapon kind of gets taken from you, that's like a horrific, like, taint on your honor, and like you will have to go, because I think like I can't remember the main character's name, but I think he's a captain initially, and like he has to, and like basically years go by between like the prologue and then the rest of the story, and basically he's had to like work his way back up through the ranks because he's like so dishonored by the fact that he like stabbed the demon prince and then it went into the warp taking his sword with him.
God.
Yeah, so like he's done the bad thing, and they also I wish I could remember because I wasn't thinking I was going to talk about it. I wish I could remember the names of them, but a lot of them have like unreasonably over the top names that are quite fun. But the most fun thing about the book is that there is a Nurgle Marine in there who they are no longer the original Marine. They are the host to I can't remember the exact number because they give you the exact number, but a hive of demonic worms, and they are simply now known as the Squirm.
Nice.
And
I mean, it's probably some multiple of 7, but
I think it might actually be 777.
I'll just say this in regards to the Silver Templars. Their chapter symbol looks like a jumbo jet.
Yes, it does. Yes, it really does.
Yes, actually, it does.
I actually legit really like that. Like that. If I was going to sit down and like collect a Primaris exclusive like army, I would be tempted to go Silver Templars, even though I've already done a Silver Marine army. But they are cool, so I do quite like them. But I've mostly spent my recent time reading something that is 40k adjacent, which is that I've been reading the last 2 Dune books, which are a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I know obviously the Dune films have become a big deal, but I remember seeing a post on Facebook like a beginner's guide to reading Dune. You've got well, no, actually, the way it was phrased is like you've got the intro, which is just read Dune. Yeah. You've got like the fun, the absolutely critical bits, which is like there's 3 of them, I think. Like there's 3 books you have to read to get the base, like or whatever.
Yes, then you've got Children Messiah and God Emperor.
Yeah, and then there's like the being respectful to the original author, where you've got like I think all the originals and maybe 1 or 2 spin-offs. And then you've got the fuck the author bastardized version of this is just you read this to self-talk to yourself because these are a bastardization of his legacy, which is all the other ones.
Yeah. Like the thing is that like I think my opinions on Dune would be considered quite contentious because I don't actually like Dune, but I'm fascinated by it. I find Frank Herbert's style of writing to be immensely frustrating, but also the world is like really compelling.
I mean, isn't that just being a Warhammer fan as well and reading most of the stuff that they write?
I mean, there is that. What I can say is the whole series, like the first book is like there is a reason why it's had the most adaptations because you can map a kind of hero's journey onto it. So it's kind of like a very understandable story. It's just that where it ends is with not Paul being the big goddamn hero, but actually, wow, was he the bad guy all along? Which, by the way, to people writing articles, the new movie, that's not a twist. That's what the story of Dune has always been. You've never been supposed to think Paul is the good guy. You just don't know how to read books. I know it's a very harsh thing to say, but seriously, it's not. He starts a holy war. Good guys don't generally start holy wars, okay?
No. Well, they think that they're good guys, but they're usually not.
And it's not presented as being good. The whole thing about Dune is it's a cautionary tale to the dangers of charismatic leaders. And then
I can't imagine why the modern world would want that.
Yes. The next 3 books end up with bringing to where there's a big guy who is a worm and he lives for 3,500 years as the worst person who ever lived. And but he's doing it for a reason, and also he spends a bit of the book being really homophobic for no good reason, and then he talks about how he misses his penis, and that's God Emperor of Dune. And I'm only being slightly like flippant there. The last 2 books that Frank Herbert wrote of like the main trilogy of like, well, not trilogy, the main series of books is like the 6 of them. Like there is some other stuff that Herbert wrote with Dune, but like there's the 6 original ones, and then there's a bunch of stuff that his son and some other bloke wrote. But the last 2 books are set like I think 1,500 years after the death of the big worm guy, the God Emperor. and it's sort of dealing with the fallout of that. But mostly it's about Frank Herbert writing whilst being really horny, and that leading to some incredibly uncomfortable places, including a thing in the last book that I do not want to repeat out loud because it is one of the more unpleasant things I have read.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. It's a mixed bag of a series, but I also really wanted to read it because it started because it is so influential in 40k. It is so many elements from... I mean, there's the obvious stuff like the God Emperor, like that comes from there. The whole Men of Iron thing is the whole Butlerian Jihad. Like that's all taken. But there's a lot of things about like the more subtle things that you don't necessarily think of, like the general scale of 40k stories existing over thousands of years and the repercussions of things. Like that's very Dune.
Yeah,
and just simple things like the 84 movie, the David Lynch movie. There's a lot of the art design in that is very influential in early 40k as well. Like there is just a lot in there. Like it's not the only thing it's inspired by, obviously, but there is a lot in there. And so I was fascinated. I was like, I wanted to read it because of that, and then that led to me reading all of them because I'm a glutton for punishment.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I've not seen the Dune films, even the modern ones. And
the new ones are really, really good.
Yeah, I've heard they're very good. I just never got around to watching them, and I don't really. Well, I do have an excuse. I haven't been to the cinema since I was. I think the last film I went to see in the cinemas, and don't laugh, was Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. So
I can understand why you would not want to go back to the cinema after watching that.
So yeah, it's been a hot minute since I went to a theatre, but it's one of them. Is I feel like as a 40k player, like you've kind of got the rites of passage of Dune and Starship Troopers. Right? If you really want to immerse yourself in the history, I'm not saying that you're not a real fan if you don't watch them. I'm not saying that at all. But there is kind of I can't think of a better phrase than rite of passage, which is that you study a bit into by reading or watching Dune or Starship Troopers or whatever else cultural major influence you can think of, but you actually dig into the history a bit. And it's one of them of when it comes on TV, I'm definitely going to record it because I do want to watch it.
Yeah, I will say the first movie is a little slow because it's basically setting things up. It's beautiful and the music's amazing, but it is a little slow. But the second movie, because that's where everything actually happens, is great. It is the best adaptation of Dune by far because it takes everything that works about that story and really focuses on that. On all the stuff that doesn't work, it either completely ejects, like, you don't need to know that there was in fact a Leto II the First. You don't need to know that because it doesn't actually affect the story at all. These kind of things that are usually removed from adaptations are removed, but also they change a few things around, like Paul's partner, Chani, is kind of just a character that goes along with all of Paul's bullshit in the book and in all the other adaptations, but they make her into a much more defined character who sort of takes on a bit of the audience point of view of going, Paul, what the actual fuck are you doing in the movie?
That's Zendaya's character, isn't it?
Which I think it lends a bit of humanity to. The stories of Dune can often lack a little bit of humanity to them, and a lot of that is intentional, but I think it still hurts the stories because too much of it is characters who are incredibly knowledgeable and powerful in their own way, talking to other characters who are incredibly knowledgeable and powerful in their own way, and then both trying to like outmaneuver each other. Basically, I've described Dune before as if you ever watched the Death Note anime where L and Light are talking to one another and then it suddenly cuts to like their internal monologue where they're like, oh my god, he just said that. Now what can I say that will not let him know that I am in fact Kira? And then he'll say something innocuous to him and then it'll cut to the other one. They go, oh my god, he just said that. Now I know that he's secretly trying to throw me off the scent. That's Dune all the way through. That is what Dune is if you're reading the books.
It's kind of like listening to any conversation the Emperor ever has with anybody.
Yes, it's that the whole time. And your mileage may vary on how much you'll enjoy that. But the movies can't really do that because the internal monologues, they tried it with the director's cut or the extended cut of the 1984 Dune movie, and it's really fucking annoying. Yeah. But yeah, if you're interested in the origins of 40k, go read just go read Dune itself. You can read the other stuff if you want, but don't blame me when you get to the end books and the major antagonists of the end part of the series are people who fuck too good. And the only way to fight them is to learn their fuck powers and fuck them right back.
But yeah, it's interesting something you said about 2 minutes ago about like the introduction of humanity making the story work. And 40k has really learned that lesson in its literature because how many, like, one of the best examples for me is Dawn of Fire. And I know Remleiz doesn't like the Avenging Sun, but I'm going to run with that as my example because Gilliman is so inhumanly intelligent that anyone having a conversation with him is like, oh my god, how do I even handle that? And yet he has that human touch to him. Like he gets it. I mean, he doesn't get it, but he gets it. And adding those different takes, and the same with Master of Mankind. Like, the Emperor is this ungodly intellect, but you've still got regular, not even just Marines, regular jabronis running around, and the Custodes who have their brains, not super wired into must kill everything mode, all the time, because they're supposed to be his companions. And it adds that human element that makes those books far more engaging than what you just described, which is constant, one-upmanship with mind powers.
I'm just going to say, I was thrown off there because I just never thought in my life I'd ever hear you say the word jabroni.
I've been hanging around Remleiz far too long. I've been hanging around Remleiz far too long. It's been nearly 7 years.
Yeah. No, I think 40k has definitely learned that, because I think often the least interesting stories in 40k is when you are just purely dealing from these perspectives of these hyper competent, hyper powerful characters. Like, a Blade Oath is short, so it sort of doesn't fall into it as much, but that does suffer from that because I don't think there's a single character in it that isn't either a Marine or a demon. So
yeah, and I'm just trying to cast my mind to books where it does work is somewhere like the Gildar Rift, because that's pretty much entirely told from the perspective of Silver Skulls and Red Corsairs. And it works.
Oh yeah, it can work. But you just have to write good.
You've got to be very good. And that's me praising Sarah Corkwell there, because she did a very good job. But there are other books, and the one that comes to mind in the same series is Storm of Iron, the Iron Hands novel in that series.
Iron Warriors. Storm of Iron was Iron Warriors.
Oh, Wrath of Iron. Sorry, Wrath of Iron. Sorry, wrong book.
It's almost as if Games Workshop uses very similar names for things all the time, and it gets really confusing, and I wish they wouldn't do it.
Besides the Emperor and the Emperor's Sides and the Fire Angels and the Angels of Fire.
Let's talk about how many things are released that are called Dark Millennium.
Don't go there. But yeah, I mean, just like Wrath of Iron, the Iron Hands come across as utterly ruthless, calculating bastards, and that's fine because you've got humans in the book who are being cut down in their wake. And you've got the Slaneshi characters who are ultra powerful and confusing and powerful, but without that human element of just guardsmen or cultists, it just wouldn't work. And it's the same like Damnos. I know how much you hate Damnos, Remleiz, so like
such a boring book.
Yeah, but if you added like actual human elements to it, it wasn't just, Space Marines and Necrons at this point had not had the personality transplant of the great Necrecon. It doesn't work. Was it Post? Was it?
Yeah. Because there's conversations between Necron characters.
Oh, never mind then, no excuse.
I mean, it's interesting because I remember Dan Abnett talking about how, like, the difficulty of writing for Marines because of their particular thing. And I think I saw him talking about it in relation to starting the Horus Heresy series and that kind of forcing him to do it and to make it work.
Yeah, but he still put Keeler and other and Cinderman and other characters in there who could contrast.
But I remember reading some of the Gaunt's Ghost books, and when Marines showed up in at least the ones I read, like, they were just, they might as well have just been tanks, like just machines that were there to
in First and Only that was definitely the case.
Which I mean, when you're dealing from the perspective of humans, that's there's not actually really a problem with that. But like I was seeing that and seeing how he wrote them earlier on, like, yeah, I can kind of see, like, if you're going into it from, and that's how you've written them before, as being that, like, then having to get a bit more in their heads, like, I can see why that took you a moment. Like, I can understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. There is one example where I can say absolutely there was basically no human element and it worked. And that's The Infinite and the Divine. And the reason that book worked is because it was funny. It was
I keep meaning to read that.
Really funny.
Yeah, I keep being told it's really good, so I keep meaning to read it.
It is. Read it. It's so funny. And that's, I think, when you've got two if Trazyn and Orican were played as both of them being the quote-unquote straight guy, it wouldn't work. But Trazyn is hilarious, and Orican is, I am so done with this shit, whatever, that it works beautifully to actually knit that narrative together. Because those two are, like, gods. Like, Trazyn has pocket dimensions everywhere, and Orican can literally time travel. Like, there is so much room for bullshit and omnipotent bullshit, but it doesn't matter. It works anyway because it's funny. And the scene where they go to watch the human opera, I think, or whatever on the Exodite world that was, and it's like they just chat about, like, humans and the opera and all this, and it's like, what is happening here? But it happens in the best possible way.
Well, that's the thing. Writing, like any art form, there is no hard rules. It's just, you know, if you do it right, then everything that, you know, you can sit there and go, oh, it's probably a good idea to do this or that or whatever. But you commit and you do it right, and you can make pretty much anything work. It just requires a little bit of nuance and a little bit of skill, and, you know.
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
Yeah. The one thing I will just say, if I have made anyone intrigued to read Dune, I will give you one further warning, which is that it is much like the books contain a lot of giant worms. You will be given the Dune brain worms, which is that once you have read so much Dune, and I think it's basically, you can get away with this by only reading the first three, but once you hit God Emperor of Dune, you will be affected by this. Which is that you will feel the need to talk about Dune to every single person you meet all the time, because you need to confirm what you have read is a thing that you have read. You will need to tell people about, oh yeah, you know that one time that Duncan Idaho climbed a cliff so good it made a woman come. Like, and you will just be telling people this all the time. You will ruin all of your personal relationships by doing this.
So it's a good job I don't have that many anyway.
Yeah. So a fair warning to anyone that wants to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I know that feeling a little bit, because as someone who's read hundreds of Warhammer pieces down the years, it's like, I'm sure, Rem, you feel exactly the same way. That you just feel like something you just have to talk about it because you have so much information in your brain, you just can't not.
Yeah. Especially when you get some of the weirder stuff, like in some of the Warhammer horror books, like you've got the Clown Servitor, for example.
Yeah, or you've got load-bearing walls being heretical.
Yeah, that too, yeah.
Or you've got, what are the other absolute classics that you can't help but bring up at every single opportunity? Everything Ian Watson.
Yep.
Yeah, just literally everything he wrote.
Pretty much, yes.
I feel like there's several more that
I'll never get over that there's an Imperial Fist called Biff. It's a really minor one in the Ian Watson canon, but I just can't get over Space Marine called Biff. There's just something about that. It tickles me.
Yeah. Actually, I saw something the other day, which, it was a YouTube short, so take it with as much salt as you would like. Just thinking about literature and mapping onto literature, because you were talking about mapping the hero's journey, but actually I'll be the baddies onto Dune. And I don't know how true this is, apparently Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, hated Dune because it didn't really have good and evil in it. It wasn't clearly defined and all of this. And so what this short was arguing is, people, particularly with sort of rather nastier mindsets, will map themselves onto heroic factions within Tolkien and Warhammer literature too. But you don't see Dune do that.
There's been a lot of people with the release of the new film going, watching Dune shows what this is what a non-woke world looks like. People have decided that the villains doing things is actually good. This has been a problem. Dune does have this problem. Fair
enough. I say it was a YouTube short that I stumbled onto. Mileage will vary. I just thought I'd bring it up.
I'm being careful. I don't want to get too deep into the politics of such things.
No, I get that
really
completely.
For it, but there is a definite issue because one of the problems with Dune is that because it's this kind of big fantasy setting, and you've got this protagonist who gains all these powers. He's the Lisan al Gaib, he goes through this whole thing, and he is the point of view character through which you are following the story. He's the main guy, but he is a bad guy who causes death on a scale that can only really be described as grimdark. And the later books try and really double down on this, but there are a lot of things which are left a little bit up to interpretation. And because it flirts with so many ideas about freedom and authoritarianism and Frank Herbert's own politics seep in there every now and again. I was able to fairly accurately nail down his real world politics just from having read his sci-fi. And these things do come out, and I think it does lead to a series that it started with a pretty clear message that I think you have to be kind of you have to be intentionally misreading it, but I think it goes on and it gets a bit muddled, and I think it is kind of easy to read into it in ways that that are not Herbert's intentions. I'll put it that way, because obviously how you interpret a piece of media is all on you. There isn't really
absolutely.
There's not necessarily a wrong way, but there are intended ways, and there are ways to take harmful things from things. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's you can take something as written or as intended. Yeah. Even something as simple as a rule in a rule book, you can take as written or intended. So, yeah, I get that. And it's just one of those things. I don't know. It was something I just saw, and I was like, I don't know, because I don't really know the Dune mythos, but I know with what you've been saying, how people could very much take that one way, but the actual message is, no, this is the villain. This is the villain, and it's the same thing with, the Emperor. The Emperor is not a good guy, but everyone seems to think that he is.
The Emperor in any other story would be the big bad.
Yeah, it's just because we're watching it from his army's perspective that he looks like the hero of the story.
This is, again, one of the things that... it's not unique to Dune, but it feels that 40k and Dune do share. Of the point of view characters you're usually reading from. The last two books, you are nearly exclusively dealing from the perspective of the Bene Gesserit. They are eugenics witches, is the simple way of saying them. And again, I think it's a pretty universal thing to say that eugenics bad.
Yes.
And I think most people can agree on that. But those are what you're given as your kind of protagonists. And so, you are invited to think about things when reading Dune, or indeed interacting with 40k. Although there was that very good article recently on Wargamer talking about how 40k's satire has become watered down over time. And as such has made it is we need to maybe be a little bit more thoughtful about when we're thinking about like how things are presented within it, because it's we can say, oh yeah, well, the people reading bad things into it, they're not understanding that it's satire, and it's like, well, to be fair, half the time 40k doesn't understand it's a satire, so you know.
There was a comment under the last episode talking about End and the Death, where it's like, I love when 40k remembers that it's space fantasy wearing the makeup and costume of hard sci-fi. It's like, yeah, it is a space fantasy.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, given the time, we shall call it there. So,
Sorry.
Hopefully next time I'll be able to talk. But anyway, never bloody mind.
You were welcome to jump in at any point.
I tried multiple times, and you two kept nattering like a pair of old ladies over a cup of tea. So there you go, ladies and gents.
The joys of it's the joys of Discord, where it's like you can only really hear the active speaker, and by the time the person who you're listening to, and my brain is like laser focused, just listens to the first conversation that is coming in. I'm listening to that. It's hard to hear a jump in, or the jump in comes in on a delay to me starting to talk, and thus I don't hear it. And it's one of those massive challenges, and I know I'm annoying for it, and I know the comments are going to rip me a new one for it, because they always do. But yeah, sorry.
Anyway, thank you very much to everyone who tuned in for this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. And thank you very much to Wib for joining us this episode.
Thank you very much for inviting me on, and I am sorry.
It's all right. Give our regards to Snipe.
Will do.
And until next time, this has been Remleiz from 40k Theories.
This has been Nee from Tactica Imperialis.
And I've been Wib from Snipe and Wib.
And we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.